single prisoner altered the fate of hundreds. But he paid a high price for it.
Over a decade and a half have passed since the release of Gothic 1 and 2, and yet I find myself doing another playthrough of both. So I had to take a step back and ask myself why. Why is it that after more than half a dozen replays that I've had over the years, I still come back for more? How come that even though I've just finished another replay, I'm still excited to play them again? What is the secret that has kept me hooked on for so long and still come back asking for more? A simple answer would be because they are good. Because they provide such a good time and a fond memory that I must simply have it again. Just like you enjoy your favorite food every once in a while, just like rewatching a good movie or reading your favorite book for the 10th time. But that answer didn't satisfy me, so in this video I will explore the reason why I believe that Gothic 2, and implicitly the Gothic story, is a timeless masterpiece. When I think about Gothic 1 and 2 as a whole, I think of a classic hero's journey that is very well implemented, where the stakes always grow ever higher. You could say that the Gothic games are to the gaming industry what Star Wars, Harry Potter, The Lord of the Rings, or The Matrix are to the movie industry, classic masterpieces of a hero's journey. You, as the nameless protagonist, are thrown into this difficult universe where you have to survive, adapt, and overcome the challenges which come your way. The best part about Gothic 2 being a video game is that even though the story is linear, you get to tell it in your own way, and that's what makes role-playing games so great. Gothic 2 doesn't have some complicated 200 IQ plot for which you need 10 master's degree to comprehend. It has a simple formula but executed with such mastery that it manages to keep you hooked on at all times. The reason why I talk about Gothic 1 and 2 in my Gothic 2 review is because I believe that the two games are both an integral part of the Gothic experience. They both build off one another and they both tell the same hero's journey. In fact, Gothic 1 and 2 could have simply been one game and nobody would be the wiser. But because they aren't, it actually gives Gothic 2 a great advantage, and I will talk about that a little bit later. While it's not necessary for someone to play Gothic 1 to appreciate Gothic 2, it is because you play Gothic 1 that you get to appreciate Gothic 2 even more. For me, a big part of Gothic 2's charm was from the nostalgia factor generated by the constant references to Gothic 1, both by the characters, the events, and the areas which you get to revisit. The whole idea of growing up from the good old days where you are but a mere greenhorn to become someone who is versed and understands how the world mechanisms work is truly satisfying. Even though at the beginning of Gothic 2 you start anew, this time around you know how things work, you know what needs to be done, and most importantly you have your previously acquired friends to back you up. And the best part is that it's not just you who grows, but it's also your friends. They move up in the world, they become stronger and more knowledgeable as well. And even though they might belong to different factions, they value the bond of friendship above all else. Which brings me to the next point. One of the strongest suits of Gothic 2 are its characters. Unlike other games where the characters are just brainless NPCs with exclamation marks above their heads indicating that they have a quest, delivered in the form of a redundant wall of text which you pay exactly zero attention to before clicking the accept button and carrying on with collecting 10 pig scrotums, the characters in Gothic 2 help bring the world alive. You have to truly listen to them to understand what needs to be done and where to go, and you only have the dialogue and the journal to figure out the quest objectives, which contribute significantly to immersion. Just like in Gothic 1, they have a good reason for being where they are, their problems are believable, and the tasks they give make sense. The voice actors do a good job in portraying each character, which plays a big part in keeping you immersed. Pyrocar, the highest magician of fire, won't just say dramatic things and look down on everybody because he thinks he's the second coming of Enos, but he also sounds pompous and arrogant. Vatras, on the other hand, the water magician who preaches to people in town, is friendly and down to earth. He helps the common folk and believes there is a balance to be had in the world. So he sounds like a wise old man who gives good, sagely advice. Zardoz, the magician of darkness, is stoic and pragmatic. He thinks that the means justify the ends, so he will do what he has to do in order to achieve his goals. From his deep and confident voice, you can tell that he's not one to mess with. The same thing goes for your companions and other important characters, which makes you believe and care about their motivations. The character motivations constitute the story. Zardoz doesn't help you because he's a nice guy, he helps you for his own goals in both games, and so do the rest of the characters. Even though the overall theme of the game is good versus evil, the story arcs are good and keep you interested in the story's development. Not only that, but the world changes as the story progresses, so you always see the constant threat. You are always reminded of what's at stake. What I like most about how the story is presented is that you are told from the very start what the big threat is, and relative to how weak you are at first, it seems overwhelming, but then you are given small tasks to go towards the end goal, and these tasks become bigger and more difficult with each one you accomplish. It's never too difficult that you'd want to give up, but it's also never easy that you'd get bored. The game keeps you challenged from the start to finish, and the best part is that these tasks didn't begin in Gothic 2, but from the very start of Gothic 1, where your hero's journey started. The stakes simply kept getting bigger and will keep getting bigger. It is hinted in both Gothic 1 and 2 that there's a bigger threat than the one you're facing, so you constantly have a threat to be aware of, with just enough downtime to not make you go crazy. The story in Gothic 2 also comes with plenty of twists and turns, and you are periodically hinted towards the master puppeteer who's orchestrated the current threat. Even though the story has only one ending, which results in you defeating the bad guy, how you get there matters. Throughout the game, you are presented with plenty of choices to help you forge your own story. Similar to how it was in Gothic 1, you are presented with different ways to complete quests and deal with situations, some virtuous, some not, and those choices will have an impact on the world. If you cross the wrong people, you might find yourself in hot waters later down the road, but if you don't, you might miss out on some opportunities. Which jobs you take and which faction you join will not only impact your character development, but will also affect how people will see you and treat you. While most people will show respect to a magician, there are also those who will show contempt and will try to take advantage of you, and so on. Your progression in game is tightly connected to your choices. How you build your character will determine what sort of challenges you can tackle and when. The game is designed so you can't tackle everything at any given time, but to determine you to revisit old areas later on. Advancing through the story would also cause some unexpected situation to occur in areas you had previously cleared, so it's a good idea to explore. If you make clever use of all the resources the game has to offer you, you can sometimes take on bigger challenges early on, which usually leads to better rewards, and the same holds true until the very end of the game. Just like in the previous Gothic, this is a zero to hero type of deal. You start off really weak and you will struggle for the better part of the game, but if you persevere, you can become a god of destruction in the endgame, granted that you also make some good decisions. For instance, a bit of build diversity might go a long way, but if you spread your learning points too thin across the possibilities, you might become a jack of all trades and a master of none. In most of my playthroughs, I learned that there were things that I could have done more efficiently to reach my desired character build, which has ultimately led me to replaying the game multiple times. Ultimately, it's the atmosphere which makes the game truly unique and in a class of its own. The Gothic universe makes you feel like none other, and there are many factors which contribute to the rich atmosphere. The biggest factor is the sound design. The sound in this game is just incredible. The music is great and it always depicts perfectly the area or situation you are in. If you are in a field or forest, it will sound calm and soothing. If you are in a cave, it will creep you out. The other sound effects will also help a great deal in making you realize the type of situation you are in. If the music got really somber and there are creepy sounds, you are probably going to encounter skeletons or demons. If you are in a dark forest, you are most likely going to be attacked by things you can't handle. Why? Because nobody goes in there to clear them out. If you are in a canyon, there's probably trolls there. If you are in a cave, there are probably goblins inside. If the cave has a trail of blood in front or inside of it, there's probably a shadow beast in there. The way it looks and the way it sounds will be very good indicators for the type of situation you are in. If the guards want to attack a monster, you'll hear them draw their swords and yell, "I hate those scummy beasts." If the guards want to attack you, they will yell, "Get your hands off my chest," or "I've warned you." You don't have to see them to know what they intend to do. By the end of the game, I was able to predict what sort of encounter I was in based on the sound and world design. The creatures and enemies sound very unique from each other, so even if you can't see them coming, you can hear them coming. Even if they ambush you, you still have time to react. I simply cannot overstate how great it feels to be able to tell these things apart based on the atmosphere. When you are in town, you will hear people's banter, preaching, or the sound of their daily activities. The harbor will sound and feel very differently from the upper side of town, the manufacturing area, or the trading square.
Why haven't I heard about this before?
Oh, okay, that was scary. Like, no joke, that was scary. Let me guess, demons or skeletons? Probably demons this time. Demons and skeletons. Why not? Okay, no. One little thing that I totally loved is people saying "for Enos" while passing by them as a magician. It's attention to these details which help immensely with immersion.
For Enos.
Wait a minute.
The atmosphere makes your surroundings believable and therefore keeping you immersed in the game. Speaking of surroundings, exploration feels great and rewarding, especially in the expansion area. Looking behind every barrel, every tree, and under every rock will usually reward you with something, whether it's a plant, a gold satchel, or something more valuable. Exploration will be worth your while. This ties in perfectly with the fact that there are no quest markers or map indicators, and sometimes all you have to go on is the general direction. There are plenty of secrets to be discovered, and sometimes the most amazing reward can be found in some well-conceived cave that you've discovered by accident. Unlike in Gothic 1, where I was absurdly rich thanks to the exploration by the end of the game, in Gothic 2 I was actually broke because I was spending gold constantly on things that I needed, so I constantly had to make choices and decisions on what I could afford and which items were essential. Combat works the same way as in Gothic 1, but the blocking mechanic has been changed to be less overpowered, so I have to do more strafing and dodging. As someone who enjoyed the combat and the control scheme in Gothic 1, I have no issues whatsoever with it, although it might be confusing for new people. I enjoy the uniqueness it brings. In a game where you have to spend so much time killing stuff, having good combat is important, and Gothic 2 certainly does. Unlike some games where you just mash the attack button and hoping that you kill the enemy faster than it kills you, and pray for some paper misses and blocks, here you actually have to dodge, block, and time your attacks correctly in order to chain combos together. Missing a combo can leave you exposed, and usually gets you killed, but on the other hand, being good at combat can sometimes allow you to kill enemies which are stronger than you. One of the things that I love the most is how dark the Gothic universe is. It's full of morally questionable situations and choices, and it's really up to you to decide which kind of protagonist you want to be. Granted, there are more penalties in Gothic 2 for being on the dark side than there were in Gothic 1, but if you want to slaughter an entire camp of people or not, it's up to you. You beat up people and they won't talk to you? No problem. Use an oblivion spell on them. Then pay a fine to make up for your transgressions. However, if you kill people, then you'll be in big trouble with the guards. There are few characters which are truly essential and cannot be killed. Everyone else is fair game. In my previous Gothic review, I said that Gothic 1 is a great game because it accomplishes what it sets out to be, an immersive, atmospheric, open-world RPG with a good story and unique gameplay system, but it has some issues, such as the game felt incomplete. There were areas which seemed like they were placeholders where content was going to be added, like some bandit camps, or systems that were going to be introduced, namely alchemy and blacksmithing. There were also problems caused by elevation and pathing in-game, where NPCs weren't able to climb or jump, which made escort quests annoying and combat buggy and frustrating at times. I also had an issue with spell design being inconsistent, where some spells were unreliable or rather pointless to use. So here comes Gothic 2, with Night of the Raven expansion 2 years later, and takes everything that was good in Gothic 1 and brings it to a whole new level. In my Gothic 1 review, I said that it's a great game because of all that it accomplishes despite its flaws. Gothic 2 manages to take every single aspect of Gothic 1 and improve it from A to Z. Then it takes everything that wasn't so great in Gothic 1 and brings it to the same level as the good stuff and integrates it flawlessly. Let's see, incomplete areas? No. They've improved all the areas of the vanilla Gothic 2 and then added a completely new area as well in the expansion. Incomplete systems such as alchemy or blacksmithing? No. Both systems exist in Gothic 2 and work just as you'd expect. Inconsistent spells? No. Gothic 2 has a lot more spells and they all feel good to use. Bad pathing and elevation? Well, it's not super advanced, but it works just fine. NPCs and summoned creatures can climb, jump down and follow you properly. They sometimes get stuck around corners and in some cases terrain, but compared to Gothic 1, it's night and day. In Gothic 1, creature summoning was my least favorite. In Gothic 2, is the one I enjoyed the most. In a way, Gothic 1 needed an expansion like Night of the Raven, but they made Gothic 2 instead. Now here comes the best part. Gothic 2 has some very advanced mods which elevate the game a great deal by remastering it. There is one called Returning 2.0, which is completely insane, and I would need 2 hours just to talk about it. But unfortunately it's in Russian, so I can't really play it. However, the mod I played with is called Liver with DirectX 11, and it improves both graphics and the gameplay, making Gothic 2 feel like a modern game. After finishing my Let's Play with this mod, I can wholeheartedly say that it's an integral part of the Gothic 2 experience. It adds things such as bow crafting, armor crafting, jewel crafting, new animations, it expands the vanilla maps and makes various quality of life changes to it. It adds mana and health regeneration, new and more enemies, and all in all overhauls the entire game. That being said, the changes don't feel out of place or take anything away from the vanilla experience. It makes the game look gorgeous and feel great to play. If you would play the game modded for the first time, you would not be able to tell the improvements apart from the vanilla game. They simply feel right. Think of vanilla Gothic 2 like a great pizza that you enjoy. Here comes Night of the Raven and adds some new ingredients which make your pizza taste absolutely delicious. And finally, the mods are like the condiments you like to add, and the dressing, and suddenly is the best pizza you've ever seen or tasted. That's how I felt during my Gothic 2 Let's Play. I enjoyed it so much that I even considered making another Let's Play of a different class. Finishing Gothic 2 took me about 3 times longer than Gothic 1, and there was still so much left to do and explore, so that alone should speak for how much good content it provides. For this review, I tried to think of things that I didn't enjoy about the game, but I simply could not come up with anything. I fully enjoyed every aspect of it, and I'm looking forward to future replays. Ultimately, I have to ask, what makes a good RPG? If it's the atmosphere, characters, story, progression, exploration, challenge, combat, and replayability, then these are the things that Gothic 2 excels at. And because of this, I can say without a single doubt in my mind that Gothic 2 is a timeless masterpiece. This was my review for Gothic 2. Thank you for watching.